This is a full pre-release analysis about Neuvillette, which will cover his best builds, weapons and playstyle following his stream announcement from today. Neuvillette is a Hydro 5-star Catalyst character, and historically is being preceded by lots of stellar Hydro units, all of them having a common factor that made them relevant within a team: their dominant application sources. While Neuvillette obviously has Hydro application himself, and as a Catalyst character he can theoretically spam normal attacks infused with Hydro, his playstyle drastically differs compared to Hydro units we got before, and that makes him really interesting. But is he good though? Let's find out. First of all, his playstyle is pretty straightforward. The core of his kit is his charge attack, which he focuses on by powering up through pretty much every other facet of his abilities. This charge attack is a very unique mechanic. It's a very strong hit that normally must be charged for a couple seconds, and after that charge time it will unleash a beam attack that lasts 3 seconds and will hit 8 times for a strong HP based multiplier. However, it's possible to completely cancel that charge time by making Neuvillette absorb 3 special droplets, specifically spheres that he can create by using his elemental skill and burst, which also have HP based multiplier. Up to 3 of these spheres will be absorbed at a given time, and other than speeding things up, they will also heal Neuvillette by 16% HP each and 48% HP cumulatively. This is a positive effect that comes to balance out the negative effect charge attacks have on him in terms of HP loss, since they will make him lose 8% HP every 0.5 seconds and exactly 48% HP throughout an entire charge attack duration. This makes him exactly HP neutral, and realistically it's just a way to make him an ideal match for the Mana Shusi artifact set. Before we move on, let me remind you all that I put a lot of effort into my theory crafting, and you can show your support by subscribing and leaving a thumbs up. His passives also aim at making his charge attack an ultimate damage tool. Specifically, his first passive is the true focus of his kit. If Hydro-related reactions get triggered, Neuvillette will get a stack that will directly increase his charge attack multiplier for 30 seconds. Now, pay close attention to this. These stacks are counted separately, meaning that continuous procs of the same reaction won't trigger more stacks, but rather just refresh a single stack. This means that in order to trigger 3 stacks, which is the maximum possible, you need a team that can trigger 3 different reactions, and so a team with 4 different elements on it. His second passive is much less crucial, as it's a small Hydro damage bonus that scales up depending on how much HP he has left. It will be hard to keep this passive at maximum potential, considering how prone Neuvillette is to continuously sacrificing HP through charge attacks. But again, since this passive is not incredibly important, you need not to worry about it particularly. So again, his playstyle is pretty easy to guess. He's an on-field character that wants to spam charge attacks and wants a team built around him to maximize the damage he can deal. But wait, does this mean he's a Hydro character whose main function is to deal damage? As I said in my intro, Genshin has accustomed all of us to Hydro characters who could generate impressive Hydro application at the expense of damage potential if compared to direct competitors. Just look at Childe. His damage is decent, and his burst is a nice nuke, but the reason he's so good is that he can combine that with enough application to make Xiongling look like an off-field Hu Tao, god damn! Neuvillette is the exact opposite. Just look at this chart I made. His damage potential throughout a rotation just eclipses Childe's and barely makes him resemble a damage unit in comparison. Even without buffs, Neuvillette will deal much more damage than a Childe with full buffs on a real team, and the buffless comparison is so ridiculous that I don't even want to describe it honestly. This comes at the expense of application again. It's not like Neuvillette has poor application, he's an on-field unit after all, but it's just that with his elemental skill and burst basically being one-time hits, his charge attacks have to carry the entire load of his application, and it just doesn't sound too good. Cumulatively, Neuvillette's application is lower even than off-field units like Yelan, so it's fair to say that enabling other characters' damage through reactions is not his main function at all. Since it's a unit that focuses so much on dealing damage himself, picking the right builds and weapons is crucial, so let's look into that. Regarding weapon choices, since it's an HP scaling unit, he really doesn't have many fitting options. 5-star choices come with useless high base attack stats, or passives that were originally thought to work well on other characters with different playstyles, while most 4-star choices are just plain weak by default. Of course, his signature stands out. It's an excellent weapon that grants him plenty of easily obtainable buffs and an energy refund of 8 he will be able to get 2 times on many teams' rotations, but we'll get to this later when I tackle his team situation. As the second best option we can find Sacrificial Jade, which performs really well at Refinement 5, but is just decent at low refinement. This is relevant, because since this is a Battle Pass weapon that came out during patch 4.0, it will only be possible to get it at Refinement 2 during patch 4.1. You will have to wait until 4.3 or 4.4 to get a version of this weapon that can truly compete with the signature. Moreover, since Sacrificial Jade's passive will only persist as long as the holder doesn't stay on field for longer than 10 seconds for an instance, this might pose an issue in case you make mistakes and unwillingly extend his on-field windows, which are already pretty close to lasting longer than 10 seconds during normal play. Without the passive, Jade loses its massive HP buff, and to reobtain it he will need Neuvillette to stay off-field for 5 seconds, which isn't always possible without a damage loss since his rotations can be very dynamic. Among free-to-play options, the best choice is probably Prototype Amber. It's vastly weaker than the signature, but it comes with HP buffs and energy refunds which kind of parallel it, so you can interchange these two and expect similar playstyles, minus the damage. In terms of artifact builds, the signature set of Fontaine, the Marashu C set, which grants crit rate bonuses when the holder's HP changes, as well as charge attack bonuses in general, works very well for him and it's the clear best in slot. Alternatively, the Heart of Depth set comes with huge damage bonuses and can be a solid alternative for him, just like the 2-piece set's combination with valuable stats like HP and Hydro damage bonus. Just remember that with weapons that have huge HP buffs, like Jade and Prototype Amber, additional HP buffs will become less valuable. In terms of stat structure for artifacts, Neuvillette isn't a huge pain to handle. He benefits from the typical Hydro damage bonus goblet and critical stat circlet of course, but his HP multipliers are so high that HP main stat pieces become extremely competitive alternatives, especially when you don't use HP weapons. Of course, this also translates to HP substats being incredibly valuable, about as much as crit substats. So overall, he's a character that will be able to magnify even artifacts you might consider suboptimal. In terms of energy recharge requirements, they vary wildly depending on rotation and teammates, but as a rule of thumb, they won't need much energy recharge on teams where he's used as a hypercarry, while you will need more investment on that sense on teams where shaping the rotation in favor of him recovering as much energy as possible is not the ideal solution. So let's take a look at his teams now. As I said earlier, Neuvillette is first and foremost a hypercarry. He comes with extremely high base damage numbers at full stacks, so building a team with the intent of him unleashing the highest possible amount of damage is a reasonable choice. With this in mind, it's important to take his constraints in consideration. Neuvillette's elemental burst has a 70 energy cost, so it requires a fitting amount of energy generation by the team to be used consistently. Remember, his burst is instrumental for his rotations, since it produces 6 hydrospheres. His elemental skill comes with a lengthy 12 seconds long cooldown for a measly 4 particles generation in total, which obviously doesn't help. Of course, you don't want to fuel your hypercarry with too many energy recharge pieces, so what's the solution? During beta, my priority was finding optimal teams with long rotations for him, that could allow him to use 2 elemental skills a rotation, and allow him to be used with an amount of energy recharge that can go as low as 0 if you use energy refund weapons like his signature and prototype Amber. The thing I focused on the most was the Taser team with Fischl, Kazuha and the defensive 4th slot unit. This team performs well because Fischl also is a character that can benefit from long rotations, since they allow her to use odds twice, and Kazuha is an exceptional pick for transformative reaction-based teams in general, considering how well he can amplify their damage in AoE scenarios. Other than this, Neuvillette's damage output is just off the charts here, and definitely the main reason this team can function. Considering his charge attacks also seem to hit AoE nicely, the pairing with Kazuha seems a match made in heaven for him. For the 4th slot, Zhonglies generally performed the best offensively in my calculations, because Hydro Crystallites can allow Neuvillette to get a 3rd stack effortlessly, and also in general his defensive contribution will definitely stand out compared to other options, like Beidou for example. The Beidou team doesn't really stack up that well compared to best options, since Beidou's damage output isn't all that without Bennett backing her up, and you also lose the possibility of activating a 3rd Neuvillette stack. Kazuha can technically be replaced by options such as Sucrose and Venti, but both of them are more limited since they just lack Kazuha consistency in AoE and single target scenarios respectively. Overall, this team performs well DPS-wise for what's essentially an AoE-oriented structure. Teams like Hyperbloom are also quite viable, but since Neuvillette doesn't benefit from particularly stellar application sources, his damage will have to carry the load. Since his base damage is pretty great, this is not an issue, and overall the Hyperbloom teams can compete with the Taser teams I just talked about in single target scenarios specifically. The rotations on these teams are generally shorter, because they benefit from very unselfish supports like Raiden and Nahida field time requirements wise, so the teams also come with higher energy requirements for Neuvillette. Burgeon with Deia is also not bad. Reminder that as a charge attack spam character, Neuvillette can't use Toma, so Deia will have to fill the spot here, and the idea is not so bad since her low pyro attack frequency is accompanied by Neuvillette's lowish hydro application. On the other hand, Nilou Bloom teams aren't looking particularly exciting to me for Neuvillette, because he can get just 1 stack at most on these teams, and his lengthy animations will cause rotation extensions for the team compared to other alternatives. The result is that you get a weak version of Neuvillette that doesn't provide anything new for Nilou teams in particular. I expect him to be a side grade to other options here at best. All of this team analysis I made can be found in an extended version of the several videos I made for Neuvillette on the topic. For constellations, I prefer to make a separate video about this entirely, because I think it deserves more than 1 minute of discussion in total, as his Constellation 1 in particular can radically change the outlook of his team's compositions. Overall, in my opinion, Neuvillette is a good, above average character. His team's damage outputs aren't exceptionally high, but they have interesting AoE upside, which puts him in a different conversation compared to characters like Hu Tao, who have noticeably higher single target results in terms of theoretical team DPS. He's also a character that might feel lackluster on most of his teams if you don't pull for his signature weapon, since his damage contribution is almost always very high, something that historically translates poorly if your best bets are weak 4-star options. And I'm done for today. The Vrizzly pre-release analysis is coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that if you enjoyed this one.